All right, Assalamu alaikum. I got one viewer in here. Um, so that being said, can you, the viewer, hear the video to which I'm listening? Let me know in the chat if you can hear the other video to which I'm listening. I'm listening on headphones, but probably should have been playing it on speakers where you all could hear it. All right, four of y'all in, so y'all let me know if you can hear the video to which I'm listening. If you cannot, just tell me. I'm just getting feedback. All right. Okay, so Deshaun, you can hear the video to which I'm listening as well. Okay. All right. I want to close my mouth in. Now, Def Rocker, Salam Alaikum, sir, from Newark. Can you hear the video to which I'm listening as well? Another brother's talking. Yusuf Bryant, Salam Alaikum, sir. All right, so let me turn him up. Okay, all right. I see what you said, Yusuf. Um, what's good, Hannibal? Can anyone else hear the other guy talking? Okay, Deshaun, Def Rocker, can you hear the other guy talking? Okay, all right. So nobody else can hear. No biggie. Um, in any case, I think that the title tells y'all a lot, and I do recommend that you guys go to his channel. I'm sorry about that. I wasn't sure if the sound would come through or not, um, but I'll go ahead and get started. And by the way, the that speaker's name, well, y'all can see it's based Muslim or the based Muslim. Yeah, based Muslim, spelled as one word. Shouts out to him. He has been a major help and assistance. And I haven't been able to talk to him lately, but it's not his fault and it's not mine. It's just being very busy trying to both teach and run a YouTube channel and also run a business in Malaysia. Um, and so there's usually a lot on my plate. So I take advantage of the free time when I can get it, and I don't always know ahead of time when it's coming. So my wife now currently is uh, sorry, I lost my train of thought. Now my wife currently is visiting her ill friend again and some other friends. So I said, let me get to this and try to help out and explain what I meant yesterday in my upload, not the live stream, but the upload. And I did have the live stream yesterday and the upload. Um, I want to come to go further today and talk about what I meant when I said to you all that you have to seek to exclude and not define. Uh, Everybody has some kind of weakness naturally, and nobody's really blamed for feeling the weakness, but we are all accountable if we indulge um, in these weaknesses. We're going to answer. We're going to pay for that. We're going to pay dearly. You know what, Def Rock? Remind me to come back to that later on. Oh, and also shouts out to you, Deshaun, for coming through on that Cash App earlier. I really appreciate that. Um, so when you're a young guy, it's not easy to just decide, well, you're going to commit to being alone, even for a specific time frame in the future. I understand that. It's not how we're designed. It is unnatural, and it's not your fault, but you have to take an unnatural path so that you can eventually get to a natural solution. Um, the sad thing is that it is still unnatural, and there are certain consequences, results that may very well be permanent, but you can at least mitigate them. In other words, the Westernicians are cutting you in certain ways, and even just insisting upon staying unnaturally alone can lead to certain cuts, but you can mitigate them to where you don't bleed later through these cuts on the women that don't deserve it. You see, when the women of the West are unnaturally alone, but they chose this, um, when they're young, they don't feel any pain from it because the way they see it, they are depriving you and denying you. And so they don't see it as being anything painful to them because they revel in your pain. When they get older and they realize that guys their age have learned to either be alone or they found someone, then what they do is they start to feel the pain, but they can't easily find someone at that point, and they certainly can't find whom they seek. We already know about this. We're seeing them aim cameras at themselves and confess to this when they get old. And usually it's when they start to face both the lack of options in men and deteriorating health, and they realize that their body's going to fall apart as they age. They realize this. And they understand um, as they realize this that uh, they have less value. And at this point, there's no reason for a man to step in and come in and commit to them, even when they're relatively young and healthy. There's no reason for men to step in and commit when they have faced the reality by force that their body will break down and they will age. The way the ladies see it themselves, it's a bad deal. They realize this, and then they aim these cameras at themselves and upload and start saying, I'm realizing now that I'm 46 and I'm sick, and I had to lean on my mom, and she's 60 to take care of me. And well, I mean, the age difference is not right, but you get the idea. Maybe she's 40. Um, this isn't really about whether or not you must exclude them while you're stuck in the West. This is really about how to make it easier and to kind of prepare yourself for some of the consequences that the results that's going to have. Because if you're prepared for it, then you can mitigate it. There will be times when you will be frustrated. You will adapt to living by yourself, but you will know that it was not how you were designed. Um, while you were young, you're getting used to living by yourself, but you're not completely acclimated to it. And I'm also sitting up saying that you can't resort to S workers or six workers. I can't tell you to resort to escorts either. People may do that. I don't recommend it. Um, because the escorts know that they're not regular run-of-the-mill streetwalkers and they're going to charge accordingly. So you can still face the same financial burden. And that's not to mention the moral side effects of this. Because you see, what you do is going to reflect in your progeny later on. If you are resorting to street walking sex workers, you get what I'm saying, then later on you may have daughters and you are going to be paranoid about whether or not they're doing these things. And they probably will when times get hard, especially if you have them in the West. And if you resort to the escorts that are the same thing but not walking the streets, then you have to worry about your daughter's doing this because, hey, look, that escort you dug out has a dad. Whether she knows him or not is a different story. The relationship is a different story, but she has a dad, and you will wonder, her dad must not know. And this leads me to an answer right quick. This question right here. I understand you're asking as a serious question. In actuality, Hannibal, our scriptures say that we were created, that man was created in his image. So in our scripture, the his is assumed to refer to the human image. That while other species can be somewhat confused for each other, that human beings are distinct, that we look like human beings, not that we look like the Lord. In the other scriptures, it says God made man in his own image, and the his is not, the his is assumed, the possessive his is assumed to mean God's image. In our scripture, we don't really, we say in our religion, we are clearly not gods. We are not gods. Now, when you say, are we gods with an apostrophe, that means a possessive. We belong to God. So we are gods with an apostrophe, as the same way somebody would say, well, this channel is Black Mind's channel. The channel is not a plural of me, it is a possession of me. So are we gods with an apostrophe? Oh, yeah, we belong to him. Yeah, absolutely. He owns us. Allah created us, he owns us. But if you mean that as a plural, we're definitely not. There's no plural. Yeah, there's not a plural in reality. There is not. So, and I'm saying that to say that because we are not deities, this can be a struggle to commit to being alone during the time that you live in the West. And to get out of the West, you got to have money, which is difficult to get, and a way to make a living, which is difficult to get. So there is that difficulty. We face the difficulty because we are not deities, we are human. And he created us a particular way according to a plan, but it is not us that damaged the plan. The Western niches damaged that plan. And really, to be honest with you, the unnatural situation into which you were born, you did not create. The women of today also did not create. They were born into it, but they made choices to perpetuate it, even though they were subconscious. When they were younger, they made choices to follow the crowd, perpetuating what they knew. When they got older and they reached the age of accountability, they made conscious choices to perpetuate it because they did not want to see what would different look like, even at the expense of their own health in old age. That's the other thing. Investing in cheap medicines designed to merely treat symptoms are going to probably pay dividends as these ladies get older. If they don't have enough resources to actually cure certain ailments, then they're going to have to go for symptom treatment. Walkers, canes, wheelchairs. Investing in homes that are designed for multiple women to live in them, so they can live together as buddies and kind of help each other ambulate around. These may be things worth looking into as investments. If I had excess capital now, I might look into investing in something like that, because they're not going to swallow their pride until they're old. And I believe this, Hannibal. I believe that when they were younger, the ones my age were making these decisions subconsciously when they were younger. I think so. Now they are. As they get older, they're making them consciously. And the younger ones, the age at which they move from subconscious to conscious, I think is going down because of social media. You got these ladies talking about what they're doing. The young ones are bragging about how they despise men and use men and mistreat men. And the older ones, I'm talking about how they refuse to swallow their pride or how they regret the decisions, either one. So I do believe that, and y'all hit the share button, please, guys. I do believe um, that they're going from uh, subconscious to conscious. Absolutely. I would tell anyone that they're doing this because if you were to ask me, well, yeah, we're seeing them brag about this. They're boasting about it. And this is why I say the things that I'm saying. It's because they're boasting and bragging themselves. They're sitting up and saying, yeah, you know what? We need to make this more difficult. And when they realize that older women regret the decisions, they still sit up and they say, but, and they just keep on with the buts. Because even when they're young, they're still socialized that it is beneath their pride and dignity to be any kind of blessing to a man, especially when they look anywhere near decent. That's their mindset. It's like that. Um, what you want to do is this: when you're looking at the weaknesses that people have, because you're human, vices, different vices. Some people just can't wake up early in the morning, or they think they can't. Then they get a job, and the only schedule available in the beginning is for them to get their asses up. Otherwise, they lose their job and they got to find another one. So, you know what? They wake up early. And they eventually find the strength to start telling people, listen, I'm not staying up late. F you. I got a job early in the morning. Or they don't find that strength and then they wind up homeless. And the same people who are making fun of them for trying to go to bed early aren't anywhere near when they need help to avoid becoming homeless. And I always say to people that they want to say something about me going to bed early, I say, when I lose my job, you got me, right? It generally shuts them up. Once, about 8 years ago, I remember this guy, teenager, saying, look, I'll take you to work in the morning. He said to me, what time did your classes start? And I told him my classes start at 9. He said, I'll come get you about 8:15. I said, listen, man, uh, you got to be there at 8:15. When I called that boy the next day, nobody answered the phone. And I cussed him out the next time I saw him. Salute Igor. Come está, amigo? Poder preto. Viva Africa. So I told this dude um, certain choice words in front of his family the next time I saw him in person. And I told him, you can't just say, I'm sorry and it's okay because I missed work because of you. You did that. You said you would be there and then you weren't there. You know why? He slept late and he didn't hear the phone ring. Now I had a backup plan, but I didn't tell him that. Today he is a grown man and he is responsible. But at the time I tested him, and the reason was because I showed him what I was going to say next. Your culture is inferior. Don't tell me to do things your way. Your way doesn't work. You do things my way, even though I came from an ocean and a continent away, even though I carry a passport of a nationality associated with being arrogant. I'm not telling you this because of these things. I'm telling you this because you're Muslim and you're supposed to know what the rules are and you failed. This is not a cultural conflict. This is, I followed the faith. I kept my word as best I possibly could to my employer, and you failed to keep yours. And so I failed in my promise, and it's your fault because you followed a backwards, effed up, inferior culture in the name of keeping it real. Bedouin ass nigga. And I said this to him. He's an English speaker. I said this to him in front of a relative of his that's an engineer, bilingual, and translated as best he could for the rest. And they were like, damn, Black is he's hardcore. They tried to calm me down, but I had to tell him, no. Y'all know me and y'all know I'm being nice and respectful, but it is against both of our moralities because it's against our common religion with no S at the end to just break your word and call someone else to be irresponsible. And that's what he did. The prophet, peace and prayers be to him, used to go to bed after the last prayer of the day, about 90 minutes after the sun goes down. That was his norm. And he would get up early for the prayer that's before sunrise. Sunrise means you're late. He would get up to that, and he was bright and early. He was aware. He was focused on what he was doing. He wasn't groggy. And you guys turned around and made a different culture for no damn reason, and then want to tell us to follow that. No. And I'm saying this to say that getting back to how you make certain things easy. You see, if that is your struggle, getting up as early, as an example, just as an example, that you have to sleep late, and it's not because of your work schedule. You just can't get up early. And what you do is you go and look at people who have had tragedies. I'm sorry, travesties and tragedies at their job because they were not aware of what they were doing. Go and look at truckers who have had accidents because they had to meet deadlines, but they wouldn't stick to a good sleep schedule. Look at work-related accidents and the injuries that have resulted from that. Hell, look at work-related accidents and injuries that could have resulted from someone else's carelessness, but understand that if you are consistently undersleeping, denying yourself rest, that this is what's going to happen. If your weakness is alcohol, don't go looking at people that are in the club celebrating and getting drunk. Look at the car crashes and the injuries related from drunk driving. Look at those. Look at the patients on operating tables and the injuries that they got because either they or somebody else drove drunk and stupid. Hell, just look at how people are throwing up and look at the spectacle they make of themselves when they are drunk. Look what happens to the women when they're drunk and the trouble into which they get a man who was also drunk because both of them were drunk. But she wakes up, doesn't remember anything, and therefore assumes that she didn't play a role in what she did, that she wasn't okay with what she did. Or she assumes they both did something they didn't do because she can't remember. So she goes and gets the guy in trouble. And even if the law would allow this to go either way, he can't realistically get her into the same trouble because the police would say, well, where's the evidence? To take the report, they'd say, where's the evidence? She can go in and just say it, no evidence, nothing, and he's in handcuffs. Go for this. Look up the evidence of these things, the photographs that are related. If your weakness is alcohol, as an example, you have to get drunk. Hell, you have to drink. You sit up and say, I can't turn down a drink. People are pressuring me. Okay, then this is what you do. You go to Skid Row with a homeless on. Look at people that have addictions to anything, be it alcohol or any other drugs or any combination thereof. Look at them, look how they sleep, and ask yourself, can you sleep in that situation? They got tents or lean-tos. Tents if they're lucky. Take a look at them. That's the situation you want to end up in, because when you look at certain weaknesses you have and you indulge in them all the time, this is where you wind up. And not only that, read the stories of children that grew up with no parents at all. Don't know who mom is and don't know who dad is, and dad might not even know he had a kid. And you must understand that there are one or two ways that this is going to, actually one of a few ways that it's going to shake out if you insist that you just got to be with somebody while you're in the West. You know the ways it's going to shake out. You get a false accusation. You get extorted for whatever you've earned. You get set up and you get robbed, maybe even multiple times. In a false accusation, you lose your reputation, your job, and your freedom. And then if you lose your freedom based on an accusation like that, depending on where you're locked up and what the other inmates think your charges are, you can lose your life. That's what you're talking about, because you just had to be with someone and she just had to get something out of the deal that you didn't own and didn't possess. Or you weren't supposed to have to pay in exchange anyway. You have to keep these things in mind in order to make it a bit easier for you to go ahead and commit to staying by your lonesome while you are in the West. You must. They don't think anything is wrong with what they do. Cardi B doesn't think that what she did to those men was wrong. And no one decided to go ahead and actually press charges because they don't want this stain on their name. And this is the other thing, even if you are Muslim, don't think, well, I'm gonna find a good pious Muslim woman in the West and marry her, because there have been good pious Muslim women, not even from the West, that went to the West and flipped. What the hell you think a woman raised in that environment is going to do to you? Because she can. And you might say, well, I don't have much money. Okay. Well, damn, what the hell you think she gonna do to you because you don't have money? She said, well, what I can do is I can have the kids and then separate the dad from the kids so that I still get whatever little child support or alimony the courts will give me, but I got control of the kids. Don't believe me? This is a common story in the UK. A lot of ladies that were born in Muslim lands and that were born in the UK are pretty much doing the same thing. They can't listen. Oh, you have to provide because that's in the religion, but they can't listen. That's in the religion too. They have to obey, but that part goes over their heads. So you have to get yourselves ready. And that's why you're young. That's a rough thing to do. And it can mess with your head to a certain extent. What you have to understand is that that's not your fault. You do your best and the rest is not something for which you blame yourself. You may develop certain reactions, as an example. Women can smell other women on a man. You know what they do to men that they're exposed to, that on whom they don't smell other women? Either they don't see these men, they're invisible, or they abuse them verbally. And if you fight back verbally enough times, they'll abuse you physically. Subconsciously or consciously, women know who other women are screwing. You ain't smashing. They smell it subconsciously or consciously. And but if they still notice you somehow for whatever reason now, then they lose respect for you. That's in the West. That's in westernized areas outside the West. So then what do? They'll say certain things, mouth off at you. They look down on you anyway. You defend yourself, they take it to the next level because they just want to slap you. Shalom, Machialis. So they escalate it until they slap you and they're going to get away with it. Now, at this point, other women have seen this. And if you slap her back, even in self-defense, they get the men on you. If you don't, the other women slap you. Oh, it's bad. So what Lion of MGTOW has talked about doing is actually going to be what's going to save you, because though the mental and psychological results of the women treating you this way are going to be bad. Now, you can get used to being ignored by women. And then later, when you move into non-Western and more traditional lands, you can then acclimate to being, you can actually acclimate to being a center of their attention. It may take you a while to get used to that, but you can. You at least have a plan in your head ahead of time as to what you're actually going to wind up doing when you with their attention, because it doesn't have to be negative, you see. But let's say that you somehow are still noticed by them, but the attention that you get is negative, because even if you're the one that they want to smash, they still are going to try to get something out of you in that case. Being that alpha doesn't mean they don't try to take you to court, for child support at the very least. It doesn't mean that. You're not immune to their retaliation. It's just that if you're not the alpha they want to smash, they will still retaliate against you for what the alphas did to them that broke their heart. And when I say alphas, I don't actually mean that you're better than other men. I simply mean that you're better in their eyes than other men. You're the man that they want, the selected guy. If you are a selected guy and you delve and you indulge in them because you can, understand that if they don't retaliate against you because you're still the guy they want, when they can't get the commitment, if they don't do this to you, they will still turn around and do it to somebody else that had nothing to do with it, didn't deserve it. Now, if you're one of the selected men, you may not have known about this, but now the news is out, the cat's out of the bag. And so now you know that by doing this, they may turn around and take what you've done and punish an unselected man for it. Not only that, but you see, being alone may have certain mental consequences, but you can mitigate those. Indulging in excess fornication, matter of fact, indulging in fornication will have its consequences. Not just in the next life, right now, right here, this side of the grave, it will have certain consequences. And indulging in more and more and more fornication will have even worse. I have a cousin who has always been selected. He's older than I am, but you know, he was a teen back in the 80s when light-skinned brothers were in style. He's light-skinned with freckles and brownish red hair. Oh, them women were dead. They've been chasing this dude. They've been running after this guy. Absolutely. And now they don't even hold his phenotype against him because they can smell so many other women on him. You know, this dude now, I think he's on his third or fourth wife. And when he got married the first time, it was to a sister. And here's the funny thing. He could not stop fornication, but now he's married. What is it called when you're married? What do they call it then? It's not fornication in English anymore. Then it's adultery. So I have dealt with this cousin. He's been an adulterer. Hannibal said it. I got a cousin who's super select, but he just could not stop even when he got married. So now he's an adulterer. Now he's been getting married, but even then, when he gets married, he marries women from Central America usually. And we don't know if he's being used or not because he's still marrying them in the United States. And he's marrying them in front of the courts. Assalamu alaikum, sweetheart. All right. Yeah, I'm live. I'll be just about done though. So that's what this cousin is doing. And so you got to realize that when you go that route, it becomes addictive and you can't just quit. And see, understand this. We've already talked about what you need to do to make this easier. One of the things is that you have to look at the end results of these things. And that's what I was mentioning earlier. You want to make this easier by looking at the end result, where it is that it lands you. You can simply go to the courtrooms and just observe, and you'll find out. That's the way that you want, that's how it is that you're going to make that particular path easy. The other thing too is you have to think about what it was that you got to think about the not just the results that you're going to look at, the long-term results. You also have to think about the vengeful aspect of it. You have to think about why it is that you should. Why do they deserve that? You shut them out for what? Well, I already told you that when you are being assessed, you are being assessed not for inclusion, but for exclusion. They're looking for reasons. But the thing is that they're so busy looking for, you know what, Hannibal? I'm not going to lie, man. Um, my brother said the same thing about it. My brother said that he fit the text. I forgot which one it is, but he said he fit the textbook definition of one of those two. Um, I think it was a narcissist. But in any case, I was going to tell y'all that you have to look at what it is that they've done and why. They made their minds up. This is how they were going to assess you all the time, every single time, no exception. They were never going to change any of this. They made their minds up that no matter how bad it got, while they are young, they are going to treat you that way. And it keeps on going. No matter how many of them are confessing on social media um, to the effects of it, to the effects of what they've done and what they believed years before and years prior, no matter. The younger ones are still looking and saying, but we are young, therefore we need to go ahead and continue the games and the difficulty. When you think about it, it's like I said before in previous uploads. Ego, they're talking about my cousin. Um, when you look at what they've done, the motive behind all of it has been pretty much nothing but difficulty for you because they will act against their own interests just to make sure that you're facing difficulty. Oh, yeah. When they're looking to exclude, they're not doing this because there can be only one in their lives. It's not why. It's not because the role that you're going to be, um, yes, Igor, the adulterer. Yeah, the adulterous cousin. He is. Well, I mean, we suspect he is. That's who I was talking about, and that's who Hannibal was talking about. My brother also thinks so. So, in any case, when they're sitting up and when they're sitting up and trying to limit the number of slots, you can. It's not for the right reasons. It's, their goal is not about chastity. That's what you have to understand. You're not in an environment where they're limiting access because of chastity, because they're still not limiting it to one. They're limiting it when you think about it. They're just doing it to emasculate you. Otherwise, they will limit access to one. They're not doing it. They're limiting it to the top 10%. That's those numbers are still enough to where each of them comes out with a terribly high, nasty body count. And we know they understate that. They don't count this one and that one and this one and that one. And you see what I'm saying? And so you also have to you have to factor in who you're excluding and why. The fact that you're being excluded is not because of anything you're doing wrong, but then they don't have the decency to tell you that it's not based on what you're doing wrong. It is really just partially it's biological, but then it is also based on this hatred that they have that leads to this need to make you feel small. Because you see, you understand, when you live where I live, not having these trysts and these liaisons are not a stain on you. That's not why. That's not how it's viewed. It's not viewed as natural, but it is still not viewed as a stain on you. That's here. So that's not something that somebody can really hold against you. Where you live, not having these trysts is viewed as a stain on you. Because the notion has been, well, everybody's getting some, so why ain't you? Since that's the notion, then when most of you are actually by yourselves, then someone, if you mention that, somebody wants to come along and say, well, yeah, but why? See, it's just you. And the sad thing is that Boomshik and Bon Quisha are trying to reinforce that. They're not even telling you, well, nobody's been up. See, in the 80s, they would have, in the 90s even, they would have said, well, nobody's really getting any. Nobody. That's what they would have said. Now they've learned to weaponize that. Yeah, I got a body count. Yeah, I got 2,000. Yeah, but then they want each and every last one of you to think you're the only one that doesn't have access. Because they learned that you could use that. The problem is we let them use this impossibly against every dude. We went along and followed them. This is the other reason why it is you have to seek to exclude and not to to find someone. The other reason that you must seek to exclude is because of the reasons for which they tell you that you are being excluded. Now, they don't say to you, well, I can't tell kindness from weakness because I'm immature and I'm pretty much a bipedal animal or beast. They don't, I'm thinking with the lizard brain, I'll use logic or the lizard brain or emotion, whichever one is the least convenient for you, is what I'm going to use at the time. They can't confess this sort of thing to you. That would exonerate you because they're pretty much saying, yeah, the game is rigged against you. Hell, our very ways of thinking have now been rigged against you. That would admit this. That would exonerate you. You would no longer be seen as a failure. But we'll look at the reasons. Look at the things they say. Having a Velcro wallet, the color combination between a tie and shoes. No, these are not things I'm making up. These are things I've actually heard on some of these videos. I even forgot who. Manosphere Highlights Daily had a video like this. In his video, I can't remember the name of it, but he was playing where a matchmaker was talking about the reasons that the ladies were hard to match somebody with because they had 300 reasons and the guys had 3. Deal breakers for the dudes was something like 3, and she said it was 300 for the ladies. Tie, shoe color combinations, Velcro wallets. Yeah, it's bad, isn't it? So you can. Any of these things could make you somewhat ineligible, and then at the same time the one socialized to look for these reasons, because you have to look for these things. If that's going to be their reason, they have to look for them. But the one socialized to look for these reasons have also socialized you and told you that you are not supposed to look to exclude, while that has been their very weapon. You see, Archaeolus, what you stated, she wanted to use that as a weapon. Now, in your shoes, I would not have asked, because, of course, she's going to give that answer and she's going to run and tell somebody. So even if you were just testing her, and I think you were, you're probably going to have to find an attorney, and she may even wait until you're just not expecting it for her to come later on and try to say something that's not true. You said something once, she declined, you didn't say nothing again, but she's going to come later on and try to say something about um, uh, the H word. She'll do that. However, you were testing her, and the findings are something that we all need to see. That's exact. How do you know that she had over 100? Because she said it. She said that. She confessed. Now she wants to turn around and weaponize this. But here's the thing, Archaeolus, she wants to turn around and sit up and say that she said, nah, so that she can make anyone look bad. She wanted to do this to make you look like you and make you think that you're actually worse than everybody else. But see, this is what y'all don't realize, and I didn't realize this. When they're saying that they have these counts, sometimes they're saying that, oh, okay, I just saw this. I was just about to say that nowadays they may lie and overstate the number just to try to make you feel low. I was about to state this. But if she kept the list, she may or may not be lying in the list, but even still, she kept the list. It's not very likely. In any case, what I wanted to point out is that um, hold on, sorry. I forgot about this. I wanted to state that she messed around and well, she still wanted a power trip. And it's important to understand they want to power trip. What do they gain from that? It doesn't help their income. The power tripping The only thing it really it helps them with is their social standing amongst other hyenas. Like I said, it's a rigged game. And so that's why I tell you, when I talk about male chastity, I'm talking about doing it for both spiritual and practical reasons. They're pretending at chastity and talking about choice, and it has nothing to do with any moral reasons. And it's not even always practical. That's what I wanted y'all to keep in mind and to realize. Um, it's not even about that. It's about a power trip. How do you sit up and say that you're going to make an effort with somebody like that, for someone like that? When you keep these things in mind, this actually does make it easier to do what I've been saying. You got to seek to exclude. You got to walk that solitary path for the time that you're stuck in the West. But you have to constantly remind yourselves about these things because it is unnatural. And I admit that it's unnatural. I admit that it's going to come with certain uh, uh, permanent mental effects. But the thing is this, you don't want the mental effects, the permanent ones. You don't want the mental effects that are going to come with making the effort and having to face this sort of treatment from them where, they try to make you think that everybody else but you has a shot. And then they turn around, they turn around and do the same thing to somebody else. Try to make somebody else think, well, everybody but you had a shot. And then the next guy, everybody but you had a shot. And yet, even when they're telling the truth about the counts are still too high. It is an impossible combination of the worst of both worlds that you are facing, that they're offering you. That's hatred. The motive for that isn't their own selfish interest. It's not what they can gain. I mean, that's a part of it, but that's not the real motive. The motive now at this point is simply about your hatred, their hatred of you. And see, Igor, what you said is partially true. It's about megalomania, but it's not all. Oh no, that's not all it's about. It is about also their hatred of you. It's about that as well. It's about them looking, they see you and they look down on you so much they think they just have to do something to insult you and your dignity. To answer this question, I saw when you said this the first time, Igor, and what it was really about is, in that case, what it was really about was that, I mean, the difference is just she wanted to the other times and she didn't want to this time. And she's allowed that to a certain extent. She may not even have much say so over it, over what she wants and whom she doesn't. She may not have much say so over that. She's allowed that. But how she chooses to express that is to try to she wanted to give Achialis the notion that it's just him that failed. Oh no, 100 others, they succeed. Just you that failed. Used to be they would swear up and down, they told everyone no. And that's what they bragged about. Even when I was 30 years ago, when I was younger, they were saying that. Now what they're doing is they're sitting up and saying, oh yeah, I mean, I got this long list, this long trail because I'm liberated. Oh, but by the way, not you. Oh, definitely not you. Walaikum salam, black agent. Um, and that's what I wanted y'all to keep in mind. I mean, that's what I wanted you all to keep in mind. That when I tell you to walk that solitary path, uh, I tell you all to walk that path because of, yeah, spiritual benefits, but also because of the practical reasons. I'm not saying give up one for the other. I got my doctrinal reasons. I would have said it anyway, but I'm not going to sit up here and tell you, well, choose whether you want some benefits you can't see and you're not really sure about, or practical benefits, because they go hand in hand with me. And I'm telling you that although the extent to which I say you must do this in the West is unnatural, that's not your fault. It's just something that they require, they demand. but it's rigged. And the motive is hatred. And it is a very difficult thing to properly estimate a blind hatred. Most of us don't have that. Just a blind hatred for no reason is not something many of us can fully comprehend. But yet, still, you are the object of somebody else's blind hatred. And where they got that blind hatred, well, that's a topic for a sermon, actually. But there are sermons being preached about that particular agent that has preached blind hatred to human beings for each other. I stated in my live yesterday that white supremacy is proof that there is a devil, because babies aren't born this way. But many cultures have this anti-blackness, pro-white ideology. Yes, the shaitan. Many cultures have something like this, and this is before electronic media, and they all did not have contact with each other. So who's the common thread that has the motive and the means to do this? Well, who does that leave? I mean, it will be blasphemous even to an atheist. It's blasphemous to sit up and blame God for damn near a universal idea of white supremacy. I say damn near because it's not completely. There are a few exceptions. Southeast Asia tends to be one. Yeah. Wait a minute. Hold up. I saw what you said. Here, many cultures with anti-black racism trying to justify their racism as natural, even though it is. Okay, got it here. Even though it is not natural. I figured that's what you meant to say. Now, I want to point this out to you all. Igor, bro, you teach me vocabulary, and I'm an English teacher. Hats off to you. Um, so the thing is that I mentioned how it is that proves that there is, in fact, this particular agent whose name is now on the screen. It proves this. A Hebrew Israelite understands this, Christians understand it, Muslims understand it. This proves this existence, but understand the misandry that you face is also proof of this, simply because this particular agent whose name is on the screen, I don't mean black agent in the chat, I'm sorry, I shouldn't say agent, but this particular provocateur, this particular instigator, whose name is now on the screen, has found that you cannot fill us up with a regular, uh, with an irregular and unfounded and baseless hatred based on gender. You cannot fill us up with a misogyny that is completely baseless. They're misogynists, but they had to learn it for particular reasons. Otherwise, you can't teach us misogyny just for no reason. You can't do that. The only way, the closest that you become to teaching us particular misogyny that is unbased, that is unfounded, the only way you could teach that to us is if you tell us that the reasons that we would be frustrated with them are reasons beyond their control, that they were just made that way. And even then, there are a lot of us that would not, if many of us fell for this, we still would not blame them. We would blame the Lord, which is blasphemous. Many of us don't go that way. What's up? All right, you want it on mute? All right, folks, I'm going to put this on mute for about 30 seconds. Hold on. Sorry about this. All right. Pardon me. Sorry about that. My wife wanted to ask a question, but she did not want to tell somebody else's private business publicly. And so of course, I'm going to respect other people's privacy. I would do this for any of you. Actually, two of you in the chat very well know about this. And one person listening to the playback later on, uh, who was a master of disguising himself and not getting attention, also knows that I will protect privacy. But I will state this, even as I'm talking to you now, My wife that came to ask me something was very, 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 very respectful just now of the other person's rights and my rights. I can't say what it is. I can say that this was very respectful. This is what I want for you, gentlemen. See, what I got is great. Whom I'm with is a blessing for me. And I'm trying to be the same thing in exchange. I want this for you. And you see, um, this hatred that they have of you is easier for Shaitan to put into their hearts and minds than it is then the opposite hatred would be to put into our hearts and minds. And that's why you see that when there's such a thing as what they call misogyny, it is usually based on things that we have had to observe and endure again and again, that with malice too, not with ignorance, but with malice, or with both. Whereas when you start hearing about misandry, it can happen without an actual basis. The things that you just simply do not know can become reasons for them to hate you later. Just being different from them and not knowing certain things. This is proof. When you find an unbased hatred, then you know to whom you can attribute it. How is it that you can spread misandry? Forget feminism per se. Let's talk about specifically about misandry. How is it that you can easily spread misandry, but you can't easily spread misogyny? See, which one is easier to spread, generally speaking? Let's take a place like, for instance, let's take a neutral place. I'm not going to use Angola for a specific reason. We have an expert there that can tell much more. But let's take, for instance, let's look at a place about which we don't really know much, that we don't hear much about. Preach, Black agent. Preach. If misandry and misogyny are unnatural, and so is racism, then they have to have the same origin. And they are unnatural. But as I've stated, generally speaking, misogyny it doesn't come with no reason for it, whereas misandry seems to spread without even having to be founded upon actual facts and logic. And that tells you what that is. It was easier for the devil to convince everybody to hate us than it was for the devil to convince us to hate everybody else. As a race, I mean. And it was easier for him to convince the daughters of Eve to hate the sons of Adam than it was to convince the reverse, the sons of Adam to convince us to hate the daughters of Eve. Because which one has more of a basis? We get sick of the games and the deception and the dual mating strategy and the silence and being blamed for not reading minds. We get sick of these things, and we may still not become misogynists, but then you turn around and then there are these ladies walking around with body counts of 100 sleeping with married men, but they just have to say no, not because of chastity. We would have understood that. It's obvious that that's not why she said it. She done slept with 100 already, and even including men married to women that ain't her. So what's the reason for saying no? It ain't just she didn't want to. It's not only that. It's also because of a power trip, because she simply looks at what she thinks is convenient for a man and says they don't deserve it. If they like it and it's convenient for them, they don't deserve it. Even if she's wrong about what it is, which she identifies as being convenient and easy for us and good for us, she's going to withhold. This right here. We don't try to teach. When we do become that, we don't try to teach this to kids. But but you can look at the reverse and look what happens. You look at the reverse, and there it is in our faces. They want to sit up and tell boys they're inferior and tell girls they're better and superior. They do want to do that. So you have to look at this. Um, I can't believe I went on for an hour. You have to look at what the reasons are that you need to do this as well. You look at the results if you don't, and you look at the reasons that you need to do it to keep yourselves on this path. And my son Simba, shouts out to him. Um, and by the way, if you're listening, Simba, I just saw that I have two voice notes, but I'm going to listen to them after this live stream. One of them is about as long as mine to you, so um, I'll get to it. But oh, oh wow, look at this. Yeah, this is a cross race. The difference, Akialis, is that the sisters are bragging about this a lot more than Becky, but Becky does brag about it to a certain extent. Becky might brag about it in private to her friends she knows well. Boom Shika Bonquisha and Sapphire brag about this with a camera on, knowing that it's going to be recorded. They let the whole world see. I would state this though, Igor. I read this. And in order to say that it's chaos, that might actually be exonerating them where they are guilty. I think it's worse than that. It's not chaos. I suspect that it is actually linked to an order of evil. Now, I don't think they're created this way or born this way, but I do. I would say that what they become linked to ontologically over time would be worse than chaos. It would actually be an order of evil. I mean, what is it that they want? They want you to suffer. That's what they're looking for. They're looking for you guys to, uh, yeah, they're looking for you guys to suffer. They don't want you with anybody. They don't want you to find someone in the West. They don't want you to leave the West and find someone. They don't want you to take your money with you when you do go. They want you to be broke somewhere else. Uh, Everything they want is always bad for you. And if it's not like that, they will even imagine it or assume it and wait to find out that it is true and then get even more upset when they find out that it is not. You go abroad, you do like El Guapo, Beautiful Lies. Go to El Guapo's channel, Beautiful Lies. And he addresses how it is that what they want is for you to go abroad and go broke and be dusty. So he shows where he's living. When El Guapo showed his hotel room in Thailand, I'm going to tell you now, I felt concerned for his safety when he goes back into the United States. I was worried for him. Don't be surprised if some of these misandrists decide to target airline jobs so that they can get some sort of arbitrary power to block you from boarding. Don't be surprised if that's what it takes. Because it is very essential to them that you suffer. They don't even like it when you're in a neutral situation because you might become acclimated to that and appreciative of it and therefore happy in a situation that's just kind of neutral and basic. It's not bad. It's not that good. It's the basics. The basic. You become happy with that over time. You find little things in which you can take joy. You become a happier person. You let them see that and see what the mother cuss word happens then. You were facing that. If you keep aware of this, I don't say this and dwell on the hatred because I just like to do it. I say that because when you stay aware of that, then it makes it easier for you to trod that path of solitude while you're stuck in the West. That's why. Until the day that you can repatriate, whether you call it Exodus from the Old Testament, or Hijrah if you are Muslim, or repatriation if you're not being that specific, whatever the case is, until that day for you. And a lot of us ain't gonna be able to do that, but until that day, you got to walk that path of solitude by necessity. Not because you're a weirdo, not because we believe in unnatural celibacy like what the Catholic priests were forced to try and the vows they couldn't keep. It's not because of any of these things. It's because they have made it dangerous to even pursue an honorable union with them. It's because they've done that. And so, in order to make that possible, you have to stay aware of this hatred. You have to be pessimistic and paranoid about these things in the West. When you leave and you go to traditional areas, it is give and take. That is true. You got to give, but you also can take. You have rights, but you got responsibilities. She has rights, she has responsibilities. In the West, where you are, you got responsibilities, no rights. They got rights, no responsibilities. They take, you give. They will even say to you, it's 100-0. It ain't no 50-50 or 60-40, it's 100-0. And they're not only talking about finances. About this one, man, I heard that they have been I heard that she might be facing 20 years for that. Now, I don't know her name and his name, and if he actually was uh, a PPP. I'm not really sure about that, but you and somebody else, I think, did. I think you shared with me a link that someone else posted about her being first sentenced. Angry Guy was talking about that. I don't know much about Angry Guy, so I'm not, promoting or demoting him. I keep an eye on him before I do that, before I do either one. But he did cover that. First, he said she's been convicted. Then he said she's facing 20 years. It's a possibility. I don't know if she's been sentenced yet. This right here. That right there. Look at this, y'all. He's getting it. He understands it. That's not what it's not about. It's not about you having something else on which to focus. They can get upset if you pay too much attention. And naturally so. There is such a thing as too much and too little. Extremes do exist. But this is not about that. This is about the fact that this brings you joy. So F you. Did you know that a man can actually make this a source of his income? This happened. Angry Man, not Angry Guy, but Angry Man talked about this. They can look at something like this, where their SO, the significant other, is actually able to make a living from this, and they will pour water on it and say you spend too much time on it. Understand, if you got a job and you hate it, you cannot stand that job. They will want you to go back, and they'll never try to get you out of that job or ruin your ability to go to that job. They never do it. Did you know that there are studies, at least one, of which I'm sure, but I think it's two. Did you know that there are studies that show that that they actually have less respect and more contempt for men whom they don't know, strangers, but whose photographs are shown while that man is smiling? Did y'all know that? You think they have a problem with that in the Philippines or in Thailand? You think they have take issue with that? They're upset because he's smiling. You think that's the problem? No, that's not it. You know that study was done in the West. I'm sure it was in the States and probably both of them. Yes. Sandman actually talked about this a long time ago. The Canadian guy. I'm not promoting him. I'm just telling you that he knows about this as well. And since he and I are not allies of any sort, that's a corroboration. Now, in this case, Igor, I can see why this guy thinks that. It's not a part of our faith that Shaitan is of the that he is a lady of his species from amongst the jinn. It's not in our faith. However, I can see why the writer would think so, because the fact remains that he's had an easy. You look at who he can. It's sort of like why it is that a lot of black folks believed that the devil must have been white. There was a time, first they thought he was just, a red demon, not black or white, but there eventually came a time when black folk began to believe that the white man was the devil. There was a time I thought so, that the white man must be a devil, or that the devil must be one of the white men. I didn't think every white guy could be a devil, but I thought the devil is probably one of the white men. I used to think that. Here's why: it's easier for the devil to get them to hate us than the reverse. It's easier for the devil to get others to hate us than it is to get them to hate white folks. And then we've already, as I stated, it's easier for them to get the daughters of Eve to hate us than it is to get us to hate the daughters of Eve. Yeah, you remember this, huh? You remember that. So somebody else can also remember seeing this. I tell you to focus on the hatred because I want you to be aware of it, since it is real and it does motivate certain things. And you know what? It has even affected policy to a certain extent. But I also want you to understand one extra extension of this effect before I go. Before I start the next extension of this effect, this hatred I'm talking about. Before I go that far, I want to state this on Cash App. No one has come through right now on this live, but I am going to give thanks to those who did. S. Jock, thank you for coming through on the Cash App so generously last night, my time, which would have been the afternoon, yours. From the bottom of my black heart, from the depths of my black mind, thank you. Armando, you came through. Brandon, you came through yesterday. Blendigo, Indigo, you came through yesterday. Before that, Aspire Studios, MLR came through, and he comes through for everybody. A lot of content creators. And S. Jock and A. Dean and Mojo also came through. Kevin W. also came through. And before that, Deshaun, you came through generously. And thank you from the bottom of my black heart, from the depths of my black mind. When I scroll down, certain names pop up again and again and again. And also, Black Agent came through generously, quite generously. And I want to thank him from the bottom of my black heart and from the depths of my black mind. And at some point, Black Agent is probably going to put out a channel or start making content that where he is addressing the audience. He might do so. I'd advise y'all to keep eyes and ears on him, but when he finds the time, he'll do it. All right, Ray Hama, I understand, man. Hanma, I'm sorry, Ray Hanma, I understand. You got to do what you must do with the time that you have, and if you come back later, that's fine. I get it. Let's see. All right, brass tacks. Okay, all right. I like what your keyboard did. Your keyboard took tax and turned it into task. Auto corrupt is a mother cuss word. Um, but I know what you mean. I understand what you're getting at. And from what you told me before, I know this is the keyboard, the auto corrupt in English. But yeah, it comes down to the brass tacks. I mean, they're not necessarily anyone for us to look at as examples, but in this case, they refer to something um, that was objectively in front of us. What's happening, Big Cap? Uh, well, Igor, it's not necessarily your fault, man. I mean, should people be more careful? I think so. But you are typing in, I mean, your first language is Portuguese, and you're typing in another language that's from a different language family that you've taken a lot of time and many years to learn. So, in your case, not because I'm biased in your favor, but because I understand being a language teacher, um, you actually have done quite well. Uh, there are those of us for whom English is the first language, and we just don't read before we press send. And then some of us have really bad keyboards. Like on my old phone, my keyboard was bad. I would type, read it before I press send. I'd press send, then it would change something and just mess things up. And I'd be like, man, shuck this fit. Eventually, I smashed that phone. Um, I had to because it started to act up in other ways too. Um, so what I was going to get at is that the next extent of this hatred is this. I'm going to point this out because I pointed out before, but now I'm really going to point this out for you. And forgive me if the sound of the air conditioner is too loud. If it is and you have a hard time hearing me, tell me and I'll close this window out. But this room got really hot, even though it's not hot outside. This room got real hot. And my wife had to open the window. She was about to overheat, poor thing. Let me see what the temperature is out here. Hold up. Let me see what it's, because I ain't been outside yet. It's late in the day here, but I ain't been outside. I've been mostly focusing on two things, money and my son. Well, no, three things: money, my son, and my girlfriend. All right, so it's not so bad. Where I am now at 68 degrees Fahrenheit. Um, okay, thank you, Akialis, for giving me the feedback. So that means that these headphones are better than what I thought. Uh, oh, well, in that case, Igor, then if this is the case, then yeah, I'm going to have to go to Luanda and grab your stomach like I do to my students, grab your stomach and start tickling until the kidneys start seeking refuge. This is what I do to my students. I grab the sides of their guts. I'm a master stomach tickler. And they have to dance like Michael Jackson and all that stuff. Uh, no, I'm joking, dude. I'm not violent like that, even though that's not violent. But so the next effect of this hatred. Wow, 2 degrees, man. I'm sorry about that. 2 degrees and -20. Oh man, I'm so sorry, Akialis. Bro, you got to move to the tropics, man. I mean, there are times when it gets cold where I live because I'm just outside the tropics. There are times it gets cold here, but bruh, -20. I don't. It might be -20 Celsius, but not Fahrenheit. Cross word. I'm sorry, man. So I'm gonna tell you one other thing about this hatred, and this is part of why it is that you got to be able to walk this path of solitude. The hatred does not only come from the daughters. I made mention recently of the daughter daddies that suffer from DLPS. I told you all about them before. The daughter daddies that truly love their daughters will tell them the truth and can be fair to a son-in-law as well, or a potential son-in-law. But the daughter daddies suffering from DLPS can't do that, and they abound even amongst the Muslim community. And what I found to be a common thread amongst the Muslim and non has been this: they turn around, and when the daughters are too old, then they start actively looking for sons-in-law. They start actively and actually appreciating the character traits that make a man a good man, and don't worry so much about the money as long as he's not a bum and irresponsible. But their daughters are old. Hannibal, DLPS means daddy's little princess syndrome. Um, yeah, daddy's little princess syndrome. It's where the love of the daughter blinds them to what is true and to what is even fair to the prospective or potential son-in-law later on. So what they do is they do things like cater to the daughter's materialism. Now, are women materialistic? Well, that's a weakness. But if they indulge in that and they demand that that be satisfied, shuck that fit. Because God made most people on this planet poor. And yet that's something God actually did. And I'm not saying that to blame him. I hate poverty, but I'm not saying that to blame the Lord. He created us. That's his right. However, since that's what it's going to be, and since the economy by nature means that by definition, a few can be rich and the rest can either be leveled out in some middle or they're going to be poor, one of those two. Most people are not going to be rich by definition because it won't be money if everybody is. Money would no longer be money if everybody's rich. And what that means is that most people ain't going to be loaded. So most folks are going to have financial challenges in life. And these dads who also are going to form the majority or not going to be exceptional by nature are sitting up and saying that a potential and prospective son-in-law must be exceptional. And so they're turning around and they are stating, and here's the thing, it's not girl dads per se, but it's the ones specifically that suffer from DLPS. I'll give an example of one that does not, and that is Imam Saad. He's on Facebook, Akialis Crown knows him, and he also is on YouTube named Amu Yum Yum, AMOO space, young, space, young. Amu means uncle in Arabic. Um, he's an example of a daughter dad that wants to be fair to a prospective son-in-law as well. And he said, I mean, he has stated, on one hand, my daughter does not have to randomly smile at any of you random Negroes. So it's not about that. But if you do marry her and she hits you, you protect yourself. And if she doesn't hit you, don't hit her. She didn't provoke it. She doesn't deserve it. Now, it takes a lot of maturity and a lot of awareness of other people's rights in order to say something like that. I don't say that. I say if my daughter strikes you, grab her arms, hold them down. I'm coming with the belt. I'm going to get on the butt. Now, if she starts lying, get evidence that she's lying, and then I'm gonna spank her twice. But I don't even say, go upside her head. I'm not ready to say something like that. Though I never blame anyone for defending themselves. But this man said pretty much that. It does exist. However, the daddy daughter suffering from DLPS, bruh, bruh, they are something else because what they do is they validate all of the misandry and the materialism. They validate this. They do things like, and it does turn into a hatred. And it solidifies the hatred that the daughter will have. These are the ones who don't necessarily put the clamps down on their daughters, but then when a young guy from high school shows up and asks her to the prom, all of a sudden they got a problem. Now, my problem is the same. I mean, if you're a girl and you ask my son to the prom, well, I mean, he's too old for that now, but if you're a lady and you ask my son to the prom, I would take issue with it. Before he became Muslim, he went to the prom. She was older than him. I think he inherited that from me, but I actually had issue. I wasn't mean to him, but I took issue with it. I was like, bruh, I had to be fair about this stuff. There was a part of me that wanted to say, okay, I guess you're being nice to my son, but take your hands off of him. I never met her, but I was thinking of two things. I didn't want to treat her like she was mean to him. She wasn't, but I also wanted to say, take your hands off of him. I have to admit this. Still shakes me up to this day. But alhamdulillah, Simba has accepted Islam. But at this point, he's walking the path of chastity. And he actually made a sacrifice going to a third world nation, not only to discuss marriage, but to do information and fact finding and gathering for you all's benefit. Now, some of you all tuned in yesterday and you know about this, some of y'all don't. But these daddy daughters that specifically suffer from DLPS, what they do is they do things like, number one, they start by teaching the opposite of what the mothers teach the sons. A lot of moms don't teach the sons anything about the games that the ladies play. What do these daddy daughters that suffer from DLPS teach to their sons? What they do is they start saying to their sons, to their daughters, they tell the daughters, well, listen, every man is the same. What? Every man wants the same thing out you. Okay, right there, right there. Right there. Um, what does that tell you? The dad sit up and telling his daughter so that she will be prepared to not be used, which is fine. He sits up and tells the daughter that there's no difference between one man and the next. And what that does is that teaches her to look down on dad to a certain extent. Well, dad was young. I mean, he my daddy and all, but he was young. That's how he was. He said that. He was a dog. Meanwhile, the son is sitting up being told by his mother that not only are women moral, but that they morally choose their mates. All right, Roger Spice, thank you. You said we have an enemy in the plant. Hold on. I'm going to go to the, uh, I'm going to look in the web. I'm now on, I went out of the studio and I'm now looking at the actual YouTube page to see if anybody has said anything that didn't show up. Because if I find out we got somebody in chat that's trolling, I'll block them. I'm scrolling up as far as I can. No, I can't. I don't see it. All right, so Roger Spice, it might be that you were able to see something I couldn't. Um, or maybe they said something and YouTube erased it. Um, oh, plantation. Okay, got it. I'm sorry. My bad. I just saw that Roger Spice. Now I got you. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, we got them in the plantation. And it's not that the dads love their daughters. It is when they actually are willing to be unfair to the potential sons-in-law. They're the ones that turn around. Um, and when a guy shows up asking the daughter to the prom or to take the daughter to the prom, they want to sit up and say, "Yeah, why don't you come take this photo with me?" And they take a photo where he's hot, he's got a gun, and somebody else's son is sitting up there looking a little nervous because daddy just has to show that he's a man with his gun because he wants to show that he's protective of his daughter. When you are truly protective of your daughter or your son, you give them the same rules of chastity, and you don't say to the daughter, run free and wear whatever the hell you want and act any way that you want out in public. And then show up out the blue and say, avert your eyes, gentlemen. That's not how you protect them. That's when they suffer from DLPS. I mean, suppose you were good enough to take her daddy to take daddy's daughter to the prom. If you were good enough, then you would be a fully grown man with your own money and you be in great physical health. So what this means is you would be too old to take her to the prom. Then he would have a problem with that. So you can't win. And I'm not. It's not all about taking the chick to the prom. I don't believe in prom. I'm simply saying that that's what they are doing. So the hatred of which you are aware, if you're aware at all, is the misandry. But you fail to understand that there was also a hatred you must for which you must prepare and that you must sidestep that comes from the dads if they suffer from DLPS. And they're going to come to you later and say things like, listen, you seem like a young man that's got his head on straight. You're doing well. Would you be interested in meeting this single lady? And you'd be like, I'm not sure. If you're a nice guy, you're probably going to say, I don't know enough now to say I would or would not be. And then they come and they start telling you certain things and they mention her age, and you're like, how does she not find somebody already? And these are the ones that'll sit up later on and say something like, well, you know, my daughter's accomplished and everything else, but she's just old and not married because these men ain't stepping up because the men ain't stepping up. No, bro. It's because when she was young enough, you were sitting up there trying to prove that you were a barking dog and scared them off. And then you realize that you might have to take care of her for the rest of your life. And you don't know what's going to happen when you pass away. And so now you're trying to hurt and put off with somebody. No, but it's not how you do it. If you love her, you don't do that. If you really truly love her with the fairness and wisdom with your heart and your mind, then no, you would actually look beforehand when she's young and you find it difficult to let her go. And to a man that ain't necessarily wealthy. Gentlemen, that's my cue. Give me a moment. Let me answer this right quick. Well, I'm in. Let's see. Hold on. I'm going to have to send you the location. Is that okay? All right. I'll send. No, it's not in that area actually. See, you know where the Judea bookstore is? Okay, all right. You be heading east on that same highway, and then it's not the exit right after that, but then it's another one. You're going to see it on the location, and you can let me know if it's too difficult for you. Okay, sounds good. All right, I'll send you the location in a few seconds, inshallah. And thanks for dropping in here. All right, assalamu alaikum. Huh? All right, sorry about that, folks. So, that was a friend of mine that while I'm in town, he wanted to catch up with me. So I'll send him the location so that he can make his way here. Um, let's see, send this on WhatsApp. Uh, I know some of y'all are gonna be like, man, Black Mind, you sitting up here talking about the Jaria bookstore and everything. Don't worry, there's so many of them in the kingdom, you never find it. Um, so to answer your question, Akialis, yeah, they do. They did well. They don't really inflate the dowries when the daughters are old. They inflate them when the daughters are young, but they might still try to inflate them when she's kind of in the middle or at that questionable gray area. They do inflate. They absolutely inflate, and they do it because family honor. When they're not black, they'll do it just because of family honor. But even when a lot of times, even when they all black, they may turn around and inflate um, simply because they don't think that marriage, a blessing of that magnitude, should be affordable. And it's sad to see them act like that, but they really do. They really do assume this. And you sit up looking at them like, what the hell, man? What is the mother cuss word problem? Where did you get this from? Um, but yeah, uh, they take this notion that they take this notion that it should be difficult. It should be hard. You should have a hard time finding someone, and that your job. Some of them have this notion that your job is actually to suffer, and you're sitting there looking at them like, where did you get that from? How do you get this notion that my job is to suffer? And they think you're being a punk if you turn around and uh, you say, well, marriage is actually supposed to be easy. There really are. It's sad to say, but there really are um, people that think that marriage has to be difficult, and that if you can't afford it, you can't go into debt or something like that, then you don't deserve it. So in any case, I'm going to go ahead and I ain't going to front. Uh, I can't afford to stay on longer because if there ain't no cash apps, then I got to go ahead and look after my wife, my girlfriend, and my friend that's on his way. But I wanted you all to find an easy way, and I went an hour and a half. So thank y'all for being patient with me. But I wanted y'all to know how you can make it at least easier to walk that path of solitude while you're stuck in the West. I wanted that to be the case because it's easy for me to sit up and say, well, you got to walk it. I mean, the theory is easy, but there are ways that you can make it easier. It's not natural, but there are ways you can make it easier. And you have to be aware of certain things. And then the last thing is that you do like Lionel MGTOW teaches. You try to not get their attention in other ways. You try that. You try to blend in with the background. Maybe they know your name and your face if someone asks them or something like that, but they think of you like they're thinking of you in a work capacity. Um, that's how they know you, and they think of you in relation to something to do with work, and you want to go that route too, because if you are if you fly under their radar, then you may have to learn how to not be alone when you leave the West and find someone. But that's easier than having to learn how to be part of a couple when you actually have gotten attention that you did not want and it was hostile and negative when you were in the West. You don't want to get used to Uh, you don't want to have the experience of being swung at by different broads because they noticed you, but not in that good way. And that's what's waiting for the majority of you. Either no attention, you're under the radar, or negative attention. Negative attention will have negative effects on you that are permanent. You will have high blood pressure. You will wince at the sound of certain noises that they may make because of either pain or irritation or something. You will be on eggshells around ladies because of that. And when you find someone that's good for you, you'll have to reprogram yourself consciously when you're finally out of the West and properly matched. So in the meantime, you fly under the radar and you remain aware of the hatred. Yeah, you might end up dead. That's right, Igor. You remain aware of the hatred that not only they have, but even the subconscious hatred and internalized misandry that the daughter daddies who suffer from DLPS will have as well. Keep that in mind too. I hope that what I've said is a benefit, and thank you all for being patient with me. And as always, black heart, black mind, blackout. Assalamu alaikum, and a black heterosexual non-select male power just because they don't like it. Black patriarchy until extinction of judgment day also. Um, uh, on your way out, if you get the cash app, I'd like for you all to go to the description of the merchandise link. Well, the merchandise link in the description, and get some apparel, some merchandise that you can wear in transit or abroad. And thank you for flying with us on Jet Black Airways. With Jet Black is also a verb. Keep Jet and Black with us until the wings and the wheels fall off. Gender, justice, forever.